Hi guys, Togo here with a new video, and this video will be the updated solo shuffle tier list video for the war within. You had buffs, you have nerfs, and I do feel like the meta has switched and swapped to a point where I can confidently say there is a S plus and a S tier, and just in general a lot of like the specs are going to be more down or higher depending on their previous rating. So big disclaimer, there is a S plus tier. You're going to say, but why do you feel the need to put a S plus tier? I'm going to explain. There is a S plus tier because between the S tiers, if I put, let's say, Demo, Destro, and Affliction, which is not the case, guys, don't scream. You have some differentiation between Demo, Destro, and Affli. They might be all S tiers, but obviously there is like a clear S plus, which is Affliction, which is the better spec out of them. But they are still like the better specs, right? It will be something like that. You will see once I'm going to go down the specs. I'm going to go spec class per class, so it's easier to follow. But also in general, I'm going to explain how the tier list is. S plus means it's the best specs in the game, just bar none. S plus means mean that it is the best specs, but not bar none, like literally the best specs. It could be also S plus, maybe in your books, but for me it is a bit lower than them. And A tier means that it is meta, but it is not like God tiers, right? So they clearly have some weaknesses, but they are still like great specs. B tier means that it is good to average depending on where I place it. I do rate from left, from right to left, so descending to ascending. So the more left you are, the higher on the tier list you are. And I would say B minus, like be a low B, would be average. C tier means that it is underperforming. It's not that good. Needs buffs. Very hard to make it work. You can make it work, but very hard. And D tier means that it is not really worth it to play right now. Because of the state of the game. And I'm going to use Drustvar as my info because I have like again still like a memory of what I used Drustvar from my previous tier lists, so I know which trends are higher right now than before. But I'm going to talk about Warlock right now. Warlock. Affliction Warlock has been nerfed, but not that much, and they got buffed on UA, and now I see a trend where people are playing single UA, which I'm also doing, to be fair. And single UA means that you don't take the PvP talent for triple unstable affliction, which makes, if you're taking the talent, makes your unstable affliction do no damage. But if you're not taking the talent and you're going to do a single UA, that single UA can actually crit for 200k. So you are like trending the same waters as a feral druid, but you're not really cleaving. Your Shadow Bolt still hurts, your Haunt still hurts. I think the thing that kind of needs to be nerfed is maybe the hero talents instead of Shadow Bolt. I think Shadow Bolt could be reverted to how it was, but if you nerf the hero talents, which I'm talking about the procs, it could then be a real nerf. Right now, the procs are doing a lot of damage. You have also Shadow Bolt volley. You have a lot of things that are tied to Shadow Bolt and Malefic Rupture as well, which adds up way more damage than you would think. Like you can just take a look at the damage breakdown of Affliction Warlock and you would understand. In my opinion, in solo shuffle at least, it is very strong. I cannot really put it S plus anymore. Maybe, I don't know. For now, I'm going to put him in S tier, and for me, it's reliable S tier. I don't think you realize that you don't need to cost too much to have impact. You can spam Malefic Rupture if you want to, but you open up to two schools, like I think it's Shadow Flame Malefic Rupture. So you do get kicked on everything if you're doing it, but if you're like spamming Fear and you're getting kicked on that, you can then spam Malefic Rupture. You also don't need to cost too much because you can just like put like your curses on everyone. The curse of your slow, for example, or curse of tongue, and you will get like your agony and your corruption. If you do that on everyone, it's already like something that is rolling damage wise. And if you're playing single UA, you only need to cast one UA. You don't need to cast 3 UAs on everyone. Just one UA on the kill target, and try to like keep the UA on the kill target, because then it's very hard to dispel it. Keep it on that main target, and then just do a Haunt, Shadow Bolt, or just like spam your Nightfall procs. You have multiple ways to play the game. Try to play smart. Don't try to stand still in front of AMM Hunter. Try to like kite the true shot, which is not always easy. But Affliction Warlock is in a great spot. Like I don't think anyone can deny that. Destruction Warlock. I play Destruction Warlock. most of the time whenever I'm playing Warlock, I play Destruction Warlock. I find it not that bad, but the statistics kind of show that it is actually like middle of the road, which I don't feel comfortable putting it in B tier. I want to put it in B tier because it is a good spec, but for me, there are times where I feel like it's a meta spec. Now, for now, again, I'm saying for now, I'm going to put them at B tier, but I do feel like it's a A tier. I'm going to revise it probably at the end. And if I'm saying B tier for the show, it's a really B plus. It is like literally it's A tier for me. It is a meta spec, but I would say it's more leaning to good than meta. And that's why B tier is good, like good to average, right? Demonology Warlock is a D tier spec for me. Like it is clearly showing also on the ladder. You have 39 like players. Again, it's maybe because you have that many Affliction Warlocks and Destruction Warlocks. But in general, I'm never really scared of Demonology Warlock. I feel like they need like some pretty heavy buffs, or at least AI buffs, because I think sometimes you're putting demons, because I did play Demonology Warlock. You're putting demons and they are doing nothing for some reason. For example, if you're like if you're summoning your tyrant out of line of sight, which normally was never a problem, you get your tyrant actually not casting any spells because it got casted like out of line of sight. So he's just walking up to the enemy and he's doing nothing. It's not doing as much damage as before anyways, but like it's damage that you're missing anyways. Your demon bolts are not hurting that much. Your shadow bolt is actually something you have to cast every single time. You don't have nightfall procs to help and to actually like deal the damage that you need. I think if nightfall procs were something for Demonology Warlock, I think it would be way higher. But since now you are actually casting every single spell, like your Hand of Gul'dan, your shadow bolts, your fears, your dogs, you also need to cast, except if you get them procs. Your tyrant is also a cast. Like a lot of things are like very, very heavy on you being able to cast. And I do feel like, for example, the Soul Harvester hero taunt for Affliction Warlock is way stronger than for Demonology Warlock, because Hand of Gul'dan just doesn't work or doesn't function the same as, let's say, Malefic Rupture, which is spammable, while Hand of Gul'dan, if you have 3 shards, it gets depleted, like no matter what. So you're actually just not really incentivized to do damage with Hand of Gul'dan. It just is a ways to like a means to an end, while for example Malefic Rupture for Affliction Warlock is way more important, and those procs are way more satisfying. So I don't know what they can change. Diabolus is also kind of like, I don't like it for Demonology Warlock as well. I feel like even Destruction Warlock is better, but the damage of Destruction Warlock on Diabolus is not that good. So yeah, for me right now it's D tier, maybe C tier. But for me, like, it is really, really bad. Like, I don't feel like you have a reason to play Demonology Warlock. That's why I'm putting it in D tier. Now, let's talk about mages. I'm not like some people that do rate Arcane mages based on the rank ones. I'm sorry, guys. That's not gonna happen with me. I'm based it with everything I see through 1.6k to 2.1k MMR. Because I'm leaning to that between, like, depending on the characters I'm playing, and I'm not satisfied about what I'm seeing about Arcane Mage. I think it's too easy to stop, also too easy to ignore. Literally, you don't need to go for Arcane Mages if they don't have a go. If you don't have Touch of the Magi, or they don't have like Arcane Surge, for example, you can just kind of ignore them, and they're not going to do too much damage. Now they got buffed, if I'm not mistaken, but I don't feel like I'm getting wrecked by Arcane Mages since then. And the ones I'm seeing, I'm not really impressed. Of course, players that are like long-time mains of Arcane Mages are going to make them feel like they're OP, but that is like a situation out of a million. It's not like even Feral Druids that are harder to play in general, they are busted. Like, sorry, I'm going to say the words, right? It is busted right now. So it's not really tied to it's too hard to play, that's why it suck. It's really just not that good right now. So I'm going to put them a bit higher maybe than Demonology Warlock. Although they have like less representation, I'm going to be fair, Arcane Mages doesn't have that much representation anyways. But I'm going to put them at C tier, because I do feel like it doesn't need too much of a buff to actually make it relevant. They could change a few things, first and foremost by adding another school of spell. For example, Arcane Surge should be maybe not Arcane, maybe it should be something else, like for example, I don't know how it's called. spells, not slinger but spell, anyway, something on SOD you have where you have like arcane and frost, spellfire or something like that, spell frost, spellfire. You could do something like that, right, where you could actually get kicked on polymorph and then do still your damage. Why not? But I think that needs like something for that, and also just in general, I think PvP talents they are a bit too restrictive for arcane mages. I think they just need a bit of a rework on the PvP side of things, because I think in PvE they're fine, but in PvP they have the same sickness as Enhancement Shaman actually. I play Enhancement Shaman. I played, not really playing too much right now because I'm actually tired of that. But they have the same sickness as Enhancement Shaman, where in PvE they make sense. They do very good damage and they're doing well. But in PvP, damage is not everything. It is how you're doing damage and how sticky you can be and how lasting you can be in PvP. And Arcane and Enhancement Shaman have the same problem, where in PvE they're very good, and inexplicably they're not good in PvP. So they need to do something. I think a PvP rework should be a thing, like for example PvP talents. But right now, C tier. I'm sorry that I talk a lot about the specs, but I want you to understand why I put them where I put. I could just make a video of 8 minutes, say where I put everything, but you will not learn anything, right? So hopefully I can make you understand a few things by explaining them. Fire Mage. The buffs are not enough. I got critted by like a 1 million frost fireball, but I do feel like it's not enough, man. Power Blast still like tickles. Just for that reason, I'm going to put them at D tier, because they need like a heavy buff. I don't know how they actually are doing that little damage with Power Blast. Like Power Blast is critting for 400k, which is a disgrace. It crits for less than a Storm Strike, which I thought it was not possible, but it is possible. I think it just needs a rework for PvP again, but also PvE. I think they have a good talent tree, but they have to shift a bit of power from combust to the actual spells. But even then, whenever you're doing combust, you're also doing no damage. So it feels weird. Like it feels like for a spec that is actually mattering about your burst goes, you are not doing anything while you're doing the burst goes. Like you can do a polymorph on the healer and like literally be fine as a DPS. Like you can just face tank that damage. Well, for example, Frost Mages, they could just like literally blast you. Although they got nerfed, they could still blast you. And Iceland still hurts more than a Power Blast, which is, I think, one of the first times in the history of World of Warcraft, if I'm not mistaken, that Iceland actually hurts that much compared to our Power Blast. So one of the other is actually overtuned. I think Power Blast is undertuned. I think Iceland is fine right now. But I think Power Blast is undertuned, so it needs to be at least on the level of Frost of Icelands. It should be a bit higher, because it is like a proc-based, like Power Blast. You're not going to cast it, right? You're going to get the instant cast from like a hot streak. So they need to change something about that. Frost Mages, I think since the nerfs, I'm actually comfortable to say that they are not that good anymore. You have also, like, I feel like they don't progress on the ladder. I do see the same numbers than before. It's not like they're getting more and more mages are above 1800, above 2100. So I'm going to put them at A tier right now. I could change, I'm sorry. I know it's obnoxious to play against. It is still a meta spec. A tier is actually not a bad tier. Like I said, it is a A tier is meta spec. It means that it is doing very well in the meta. It has weaknesses though. And the weakness calls, I'm going to say directly, I think I'm going to directly go to Hunter. But Mages right now is doing good, very good versus a lot of specs. They are very sturdy, but their damage is a bit lower right now. And obviously, I do feel like the meta switch has been occurring, where Frost Mages do get countered by a few specs, which I'm going to tell you once we are at the S pluses and the S tiers. I'm going to go straight for Hunter. Let's go MM. I think it's obvious. For me, it's now a S plus tier. I don't care how people may say that it's a hard spec. It is not a hard spec. You can play Sentinel, you can play Dark Ranger. Sentinel is very good, by the way. Just play Sentinel and you're doing fine. You can root actually people that are hitting you. If they're targeting you, you stay in the Lunar Storm, they take shit ton of damage. Sometimes you can just accept standing still and doing aim shots. See a lot of like hunters kiting, but but they forget that their aim shot is actually just not something that can get interrupted. Micro CC is going to happen anyways. Just eat the micro CC and go beyond that, right? You're also very much more tankier than ever before. Like, I think Hunter has been so hard to kill in general right now that sometimes you're deciding to not go for the because the damage is kind of the same anyways, because they're still like a good Hunter kind of actually costs anyways, right? They're going to get stopped, but they know like the stops are not infinite. For me, it's S+, because they counter Affliction Warlock, they counter Frost Mage, they counter Destruction Warlock, they counter any caster in the game. They are like one of the only stops to Devastation evokers, by the way. They're also very good versus Unholy DK because it is physical damage and they don't have, like, AMS doesn't do shit versus them. And in general, your CC is maybe not that strong because your trap does get broken, but it's still there, right? You can push them away, you can push people away, you can double push them away. Some maps are very frustrating to play against the Hunter. And I think it's one of the easier specs to play as well. So if you want to have success as a hunter, you can just go and do very well. That's my opinion. And those, like, that spec itself is like bringing frost mages down in general. Like, I think it's very strong. You have a comeback from BM Hunter because of the buffs. I do feel like some of the buffs are a bit placebo. I think a lot of Hunters actually just started to play BM Hunter. The damage is kind of the same. I think people don't realize that BM Hunter has a bit more nuance now, because you are actually like dependent of dots to improve your damage. Now they're going to nerf it in the mid-season if I'm not mistaken. So the playstyle will change again. But right now, the more dots you have on the enemy, and it works also for Affliction Warlock, so if they put dots on the enemy, you're going to deal more damage. It is actually like going to improve your damage significantly. And if you know how to put dots, and you know how to maintain those dots, and you know who you're going to target here and there, you can actually deal some good damage. But I think the meta has switched enough to make them better. Now, I'm going to say that BM Hunter is like still not the greatest spec out there, but I do feel like I could put them at B tier above Destruction Warlock, but or like, to be fair, I could put them at A tier. I don't know if it's going to be meta, but I think it's like the same as Destruction Warlock, where they're middle of the road right now. And you need to remember, like, you only have 95 BM Hunters in US above 1800. If I go for the EU, for example, we have 198. You have a way more popular spread for BM Hunter in EU, but that always was the case, by the way. So there is a world and a case for BM Hunter and Destruction Warlock to be also A tier. But I'm going to, for now, put that B tier, and I might change at the end. I might, depending on who I'm putting in B tier, I might like go up or go down. Now, there's something I want to note about Survival Hunter. I think Survival Hunter is actually not that bad. It's actually very strong. I think the damage is really, really good. I think it's reliable as well. The bombs are doing good damage. I think it just is like one of the specs where you're easily targeted because you're like more melee than ranged. You could be playing more ranged as well, but then you're lacking the damage on Goose Bites, for example, which also hurts. Pack Leader kind of sucks in my opinion. Sentinel is the better one. I think because of the meta, man, since Feral Druids are very good and very prominent right now, you could actually play with the Bleed Dispel, so you could like dispel you every single time, and that is actually making the Feral Druid cry, because again, snapshotting is still a thing if I'm not mistaken, and you have your bigger bleeds, and if you do remove the bigger bleeds, and then they don't have Berserk, for example, or they don't have Tiger's Fury, then obviously their next bleeds are not going to hurt as much. But if I put Survival at A tier, then I think BM Hunter should also be A tier. That's tough. I'm going to put them at A tier, and I'm going to put BM Hunter as well at B tier, A tier. Destruction Warlock is a different, like, it's a different spec. It's for me, it's different enough to say like maybe it deserves A tier, but there are cases where yes, it does feel like just a good spec and not really a meta spec. Now let's talk about Warrior. Interestingly, I think Warrior right now, it suffers a bit less in this meta because obviously Frost Mages gets a bit more checked. Warlocks are actually not that bad for you because you are capable to win versus a Warlock, for example, because they are like more immobile. You can kind of win. Fears doesn't apply too much on you, and in general, you're less CC'd versus Affliction Warlocks than, let's say, something else. For me, I'm going to put a Fury Warrior into. I want to put him in 8 here, to be fair, but I'm going to put them at S tier. The reason why is that the meta has switched to a meta where you could actually do something compared to before, and you were already very strong before. Your biggest MS is still a thing for Soul Shuffle because dampening is a thing, but also 36% like more strike because of Slaughterhouse is very strong, and if you have uptime on it, it's very hard for the healer to actually like combat it. You're also one of the specs that can actually just do a burst and your DPS is going through the roof, and your burst is actually very consistent and very fast. And also comes back very fast as well. There is a world where you could put A tier Fury Warrior. I think the reason I'm putting S tier is because Frost Mages are going lower, so it does make Fury Warrior a bit more strong. But I'm going to say that there is like a S plus that is actually making them feel like they're A tier. So I'm going to talk about that a bit further down the line. But I think it's S tier. Arms Warrior though, for me it is average. So this is like not good. This is average. For me it's average because they lost double Blaze Storm, which should not be lost for Arms Warrior. I think it's the biggest nerf that they actually could do for Arms Warrior is actually like removing Blaze Storm, like a Blaze Storm charge from Arms Warrior. I'm not saying like a charge, but like literally doing an avatar and getting Blaze Storm out of it is something very strong. And they also removed Hurricane, which gave us movement speed and strength, which in then made us do more damage. Now that those two were removed, and it never got compensated. And they nerfed Slayer, so Blade Storm got nerfed. So they nerfed the better hero taunt and they buffed a little Colossus, which is a hero taunt that I love to play because I'm playing like crit build. I made a guide about it. It's cool, but the issue is it is not really reliable. And again, if you don't crit, it feels like underwhelming. If you do crit, like something is going to die. So that's interesting. But I often don't crit on the like Demolish. So I do feel like it's average. It gets kited to Narnia by any spec, even more than Fury. Fury has at least the leisure to, if they catch up to someone, to delete someone, while Arms Warrior has a bit of a charge up. So once you can hit people, you can then charge up to deal more damage at one point. But Fury Warrior has like a 100 to 0 kind of deal, right? And that's why there is like a difference between those two. Right now, Arms Warrior kind of needs something. I don't know what they need. Is it because like more strike is like everything currently with execute and Blaze Storm? Is it because the bleeds are doing no damage or little to no damage compared to the other top specs? Is it because like they have no utility compared to before? I think they lost a lot between Shadowlands, Dragonflight, and now with the War Within. So I wonder if they're going to get a rework. I also think that the arms spec is really not flexible to the point where you cannot really deal situations per situation. You cannot say, look, this game I'm going to play that to counter this one, for example. That is not going to happen as an arms warrior. So it is what it is. Also, to note, why didn't I like rank the tanks, and why do I not put it in F tier? Because I think if you can make tanks work, more power to you. I just don't want to rate them. I don't want to be wrong about them as well, because sometimes tanks can be good. Like for example, protection warriors versus like an all physical damage dealing lobby can actually be okay. But again, it's like a if, and sometimes you get like a caster and then you get destroyed. So I'm not going to talk about tanks. I'm a bit sick. Now let's go DK. DK is a good talk. I'm going to put them at S plus because it is disgusting. The damage is so free. You put diseases, you do a scourge strike to get like the buff for your diseases to do more damage and more faster. In general, it is free damage. Your burst is insane as well, and even though they nerfed the death coil PvP talent where you're bursting 3 wounds, now it's 2 wounds, that is nerfed. It doesn't seem like it affects too much because again, you can always burst them by other means, by doing a scourge strike or apocalypse, or doing another death coil, for example, with sudden doom. For me, it's going to be S plus. They are like really very prevalent in the meta. They are all, like always there. It's very weird that season 1 Unholy DK is really strong, but for some reason they changed their habits with nerfing DKs. They're very strong versus Affliction Warlock, very strong versus mages, very strong versus like even warriors because they are very easy to hit. They're very disruptive as well, and I do feel like in those like lobbies you don't get focused that much while you are normally a bit squishier. So I think it's S plus, and it is like really good. Like I cannot really think about like a better spec right now, melee wise, except one, which I'm going to talk about a bit further down the line. Frost Decay. Frost Decay is going to be C tier. Why not D tier? Because I do feel like there is redeemable factors about Frost Decay. It has nothing to do with probably how they deal CC. Well, it has to do because again, you can get screwed by your teammates. I do think like why is there not a lot of Frost DKs in general compared to Unholy DKs, because it is not really a popular spec anyways. But also, if Unholy DK is that strong, it's very hard to justify to play Frost DK, and they don't play the same build. Like Frost DK, if you want to play dual build, you need 13% crit, or 14% or 12%, something like that, to get like uptime on their Pillar of Frost talents to improve their duration. And that is a no-go for Unholy DK. Frost DK also wants 4 set, Unholy DK doesn't want 4 set. So you have to commit. If you're going for Unholy DK or Frost DK, you have to commit. And most people are committing to Unholy DK, which is a smart choice anyways. Frost DK lacks Obliterate damage. I do feel like Obliterate is actually not hurting too much. They have the same issue as Fire Mage, where their goal of the spec is still the same, but the damage has been shifted towards other pieces of their kit, which is fine. But having that still Obliterate being meaningful because of Pillar of Frost, but that not doing that much damage because you're playing dual wield, for example, and you're playing around Frost Strike, is not really a good thing in general. I do feel also the meta is not really suited for Frost DK. I think Unholy DKs, Hunters, Fury Warriors, they just eat Frost DKs alive, and they just, for example, Fury Warrior can just like disarm a Frost DK and it's over, right? So for me, it's going to be C tier. Now let's talk about Druid. I think Druid is a good discussion. I have teased it a bit enough. I think it's the best spec in the game right now. I think it is the best melee spec in the game right now. It's very hard to play against, like very hard. I get critted 400k rake, and it is not the rake that he's doing, but the dot from rake that is actually critting me for 400k. Rip crit 300k, does normal damage 250k. It is actually insane. The damage is insane. They actually made Feral Druid better after the nerfs. Ferocious Bite still normal hits for 800k, which is still more than a War Strike, by the way. It is insane how Feral Druid is overtuned. Their bleeds are doing damage. Wall Stalker brings another bleed. Vine, whatever. Don't even know how it's called anymore. Vine Blood Seekers or whatever. It actually also crits for a lot. Like your dots hit and crits for more than Assassination Rogues, more than Affliction Warlocks, more than who else? Like Ignite from Fire Mage, more than any dot spec right now. Feral Druids are insane. They are very strong, doesn't need too much coordination. You don't even need to spam Cyclone anymore because that PvP talent is gone, so it is no risks. You can also sit in bear form while the dots are ticking, so you can gain a bit of time and then go back with a Berserk, Tiger's Fury burst, for example, and again reapply those bigger dots. Now they have a few counters, for example, evokers being able to dispel bleeds, but the thing is the bleeds are not around Feral Frenzy anymore, so reapplying Rake or Rip is not as hard as before. So right now, S plus, disgusting to play. In 3v3 it's even worse. I think it's going to be, in my books, it's S plus plus. Like it's above everything. Like I see Feral Druids in every single lobby. Good job to you guys. You have fun with Feral Druid right now. Personally, I want to play too, but the issue is once I play Feral Druid, it will get nerfed. So I'm going to give you a bit of time in the sun before that happens. But Feral Druid is really, really strong. I don't know if it's fun to play right now. You can say that to me. But right now it is like disgusting damage. Like it's unavoidable damage for sure. Like that's the issue. Unavoidable damage. You can even like sit in bear form with the dots up and still topping meters. And even then you don't even need to sit in bear form. Like I don't know. It's really strong. Like congrats. That's all I can say. Congrats. You kind of changed the meta by itself. Like Feral Druid changed the meta by itself with Hunters. Like if you face a jungle cleave in Soul Shuffle, good luck, man. It has nothing to do with CC. It has to do with the insane pressure from both specs. Like you can focus the Feral Druid, make him bear form, and then you're doomed by the Hunter. If you go for the Hunter, then the Feral Druid has a way better, easier time to apply those dots, do a lot of damage, and actually cyclone the healer. So yeah, it's tough. It's very tough. Now let's talk about Balanced Druid. I think Balanced Druid is middle of the pack. Average, I don't know. They're not doing well though. Like, I'm going to put them at C tier. I might overshoot my downgrade because I don't think I put it C tier previous tier list. But I do see a lot of Balanced Druids struggle in PvP right now, at least in Soul Shuffle. In Soul RBG is fine, I guess. But in Soul Shuffle, you do get focused pretty hard. You do die pretty quickly as well. And your damage is not that impressive, except if you're doing your biggest go. But even then, they can force you to go bear form anyways, and then you're kind of screwed. So I'm going to put them at C tier. I think Cyclone is still a very good CC, but it's very hard to do so if you are facing Preservation Evokers, facing Disc Priest that can fade, like facing the top healers in general, but also top DPSers. Like very hard to do anything whenever there's an Hunter in the team against you, or an Unholy DK gripping you every single time, or a Feral Druid like putting the bleeds and literally like dying. So C tier, I think, above Arcane and Frost DK, but I think it's C tier pretty easily. Resto Druid, I'm actually not that impressed. Like in Soul Shuffle, it also shows like it is really lower than Holy Paladin, Preservation Evoker, and Disc Priest. That is for EU. In US, it's even worse. It is Resto Shaman above Resto Druid. And the EU is notoriously something that is actually working well for Resto Druid. Like if Resto Druids is doing well, you will see a lot of EU players playing Resto Druid, because I don't know, this region really loves Resto Druids. But right now it is not doing well. For me, it is really average. Like I'm going to put them even lower than Arms Warrior. I'm actually not that impressed. And I think you are spending way too much time healing than cycloning. Yes, you can like do a big stun into cyclone at the start of the game, but often than that, you could actually like get yourself also stunned, cycloned, or feared, or whatever CC that is going to come onto your way if you're playing like this. It's very hard to play offensively as well, very hard to have an impact in Soul Shuffle. I'm actually not that impressed about Resto Druid currently. Also very killable. Like if you see a Resto Druid without a hot on himself, just swap on him and he's going to panic Tranquility directly, for example. Very strong. Very weak, excuse me. But very strong to switch on Resto Druid. Let's talk about Assassination Rogue. I think Assassination Rogue is not that bad. I think the meta doesn't suit them though. It doesn't really suit them. It does show like in numbers that they are like kind of average, to be fair, but that's like normal. Like in rogues, never really top ladders in general in soul shuffle. It's always in twos, for example. But you have a lot of specs that are really hard for assassination rogues to deal with. Like Unholy DK, very hard to stun anyways. Like you have a trinket, you have Iceborne Fortitude. MM hunters are like a bit easier for assassination rogues, but even then, like they're not solo, and evasion is good, but you cannot really keep on evasioning the whole go. So obviously that is also a problem. Feral Druid is doing very well versus Assassination Rogue as well. Like, put the bleeds and he's going to die anyways. He has to play Cloak talent, which is a PvP talent that is removing bleeds. Affliction Warlock is doing a bit worse as Assassination Rogue, but I do feel like they missed the damage to actually finish off targets. And you are susceptible to evokers dispelling your whole go. So that is also a thing. I'm going to put them at A tier. I think A tier is a fair spot for them. They're good. They're meta. You're going to get a good time playing Assassination Rogue, but they have obvious issues around surviving in general, but also around finishing off targets. Like at one point, you will lack the damage to actually do something, and I do feel like right now the meta is suiting to other specs, but they're still meta. But like they are obviously a bit lower than the god tiers. Sub Rogue is going to be in social. I'm going to put them in B tier. Why do I put them at B tier? I'm going to be fair. Like I said, this tier list is not made for rank 1s. And any sub rogue I see, I'm like genuinely surprised by the amount of mistakes they're doing. Now, it is a hard spec to play in general. Also hard class to play in general, in social at least. Because your DR, like your stun DRs, are like very heavily influenced by your allies as well, so that sucks. You can blind the target and it gets a dot from a disc priest, for example, so it is what it is. You have Shadow Duel, which is very important, and Smoke Bomb, which is also very important, but I do feel like they lack the coordination that they could have in threes. I think in threes is a bit higher, way higher actually. But I do feel like right now it is not in a great spot to pretend in meta. Now, I will not buff it. I think they could buff Backstab. Like, really make it worth it to press. Would be nice to have, like, Backstab mean something again. But in general, I do feel like they're a good spec. Like, B tier is not bad. It is a good spec, but it's very hard to make it work. And just because of that reason, I'm not going to judge like the best rogues in the game to like say this is a tier list for sub rogue. No, I'm going to say, look, the many players I have seen playing sub rogue, the many players I see on the ladder as well sub rogue, are not impressive. Like they're good. They're very good actually, but they're not impressive to the point where you feel powerless. And sub rogue kind of needs to make you feel powerless to be very, very, very strong. So B tier. B tier. I also need their allies to be coordinated, which in Soul Shuffle, as you may know, is not always the case. Devastation Evoker, S+. Yes, I do feel like it's the best caster in the game right now. It doesn't show, but it is third place. Third place as a spec that is not meta or not popular. Not meta, but I mean popular. Like, most people are not playing Evoker. And the people that do play Evoker, they climb very well. I think Devastation Evoker is very, very strong, very underrated as well by a lot of players. But for me, it is like one of the most annoying specs to face in a Soul Shuffle. They have double hover, they can do deep breath and then have another double hover, which is very annoying to catch up. A lot of the specs are like not good versus Devastation Evoker, and Devastation Evoker is actually good to play with anyone. Like, you can play with Feral Druid, you can play with an Unholy DK, you can play with a Mem Hunter, you can play with Fury, with Affliction Warlock, and you're going to do fine. Your CC is okay, it's not like great, but you don't need CC whenever you're doing that much damage, and right now it is going to be nerfed and over nerfed and over nerfed, and at one point it will be lower, but I think the utility that it has and the PvP tons that it has is too strong for current game setting. I think having a unslowable target is maybe not fine for the game. It should be, maybe you cannot be slowed below 100%, like many specs has. But this one is the only spec that has like a freedom the whole game. So S+, very strong. Preservation Evoker. I'm going to put them at S tier still. They're still very strong. They're fitting the meta. That's the thing. They're very fitting for the meta. Their healing is very good. Their damage is very good. You can actually like decide games by yourself. You have also like Hover, which is also still like a very good mobility spell. And I think it is top 2 best healers in the game right now. Augmentation Evoker, very hard to judge. I don't see a lot of Augmentation Evokers, to be fair. Also on the ladder, like only have 17. So for me, I'm going to put them at B tier because I don't know. Like this is pretty much like I don't know tier. Like this one at least, like for this spec, it is I don't know tier. It could be very high, it could be very low. I don't see them. Like I don't see them on the ladder. I don't see them nor in my games. Like on the many specs I play, I don't see them. Even in solo RPG, I see like 1 out of 20 games, which is very low amount of augmentation evokers. Even then, like I'd say, like probably overstated by me. So if you find it very strong, please let me know in the comment section below. Or if you find it very weak, let me know as well. I did see a few augmentation evokers like really doing a lot of damage, but like again, I think it's very lobby dependent. Let's talk about Disc Priest. Disc Priest is going to be S tier as well. They are, say, one of the better specs in the game, probably maybe the best spec in the game as well. This is like a tie. I cannot really decide which one is the better spec. They have pressure, they have damage, they have CDs. Their CDs are very strong. Yes, they got nerfed on Wheel and Woe, but that's probably not enough to make them worse. I do feel like the better Disc Priests are like putting insane pressure. The people that don't play Disc Priest well, they heal too much with flash heal. And the Disc Priests that are very good, they don't heal with flash heal, for example. So you have to know how to deal like damage and get atonement healing and do big shields. But you also need to know when to actually deal damage and to do ultimate penitence. Like I see a lot of Disc Priests still cast ultimate penitence in melee form, and the interrupts are still there. They get interrupted and boom, they lose the game. You need to understand like some spells are best to cast whenever all interrupts are gone from the game, so you could actually just do your work. So again, I think right now S tier, probably above Preservation Evoker depending on your POV. For me, it's going to be tie. I think both are very strong. You see Preservation Evokers and Disc Priest pretty much every single game, except another healer, which I'm going to talk about a bit further down the line. Now, Shadow Priest is interesting because I don't see many of them. The ones I see, they have impact because they have CC. You have representation on the ladder. Now, is it because it's good? Is it because it's bad? Is it because like people are like playing super mainly as a Shadow Priest? What do I mean with that? I mean like they play Shadow Priest throughout the expansions no matter what. Is it because of that? I don't know. I do feel like they do fit the meta because they are very good with any spec. But I'm going to put them at low A tier. Based on the observation I have with the many Shadow Priests I've seen, but also based on the ladder. I think ladder just shows like they are top 5 spec. In US and in EU, you have also a top 5 spec, and they didn't get buffed. So they're more likely to get buffed than nerfed in general right now, especially right now. If you're the target, play Catharsis. If you're not the target, don't play Catharsis. Play Psyphene, for example. Try to play Oracle instead of like not Oracle, Arcane instead of like Voidweaver. Then you will deal more damage, in my opinion, with your Insanity, Mind Flay Insanity. You have to play around your strength, and I do feel like right now Shadow Priest is actually quite decent. Very hard to play. I'm not gonna lie. It is hard to play, but it is very decent to play. Very good to play. Right now meta spec, so obviously it's good. Holy Priest. Now, for me it's going to be C tier. every time I see a Holy Priest, I'm not really that impressed, but also it's not that strong. I don't know, man. I don't know what they need to be stronger. I do feel like it's not D tier because there is a spec where I think is a bit more deserving to D tier right now. Even then, I don't think they're D tier. So I'm going to say no healer is D tier in my books. Okay, I don't think any healer is garbage. I think there are healers that are underpowered. I think Holy Priest is underpowered. They don't have like the utility of a Disc Priest. They don't have the damage of a Disc Priest. They have healing, but it's backwards. You want to have people being lower HP to be able to heal a lot. So I don't know. It's very hard to make it work in current environments where damage is very spiky, and you can actually get switched on, and then you don't have no defensives anymore. Let's talk about Shaman. Shaman is a good talk. Enhancement Shaman. What can I say about Enhancement Shaman? Well, can I say that it is like 2% played spec when getting buff after buff after buff in EU. US has a bit more players on Enhancement Shaman, but they are saying that half of them are alts. So you don't have 49 players playing Enhancement Shaman. You have around 25, 24 Enhancement Shaman players above 1800 that are unique accounts, unique characters. And that is again, I overstated. I think it's probably less than that. Right now, Enhancement Shaman is not in a great spot, especially in Soul Shuffle. You are easily targeted. You are easily killed. Yes, you can play like a support bot, but you can do that as well on Elemental Shaman. I don't feel like you need to play Enhancement Shaman to do that anyways. I'm not impressed. The damage is very good though. Like I know Enhancement Shaman is doing good damage. The damage is not the issue. Like I said, damage is nice to have, but you need to be having more. Any spec above like B tier has great damage. They never lack damage. Even B tiers don't like damage. What they lack is actually sticky power. And Enhancement Shaman is very, very easy to like push around, shove around, play around. Like they are easily targeted as well, and their damage is high, but it's not going to, you're not going to burst out of the blue. Your damage is not really bursty. It is very consistent. It is consistently high, but the burst is not high. I'm going to say it's C tier, and that's because I'm very, very, very kind by doing that, because I think it's lower. But for now, I'm going to put them at C tier. It's not a good spec. No matter what people say, it is not impressive right now. They need something mobility-wise, defensive-wise to be strong. Put Astra Shift finally on something you can press whenever you're stunned. That would help a lot, instead of like trying to preemptively using a defensive whenever they're not doing a go, and they're not doing a go, and then they're going to do a go whenever it's too late for you. Or you're getting stun locked and boom, you don't have the Astra Shift and you're going to die from it. It's not the greatest spot for Enhancement Shaman. I think Totemic is doing better right now. If you want to play Enhancement Shaman, play Elementalist, Totemic. You're probably going to have a bit more luck with that. You can climb as Enhancement Shaman. I'm not saying like even with Fire Mage you can climb. That's not the issue. I'm going to say that it is infinitely harder to play Enhancement Shaman than any other spec on the ladder, on the tier list. And right now it is like not that great. So I would not recommend anyone to push hard on Enhancement Shaman. Elemental Shaman, on the other hand, I think it's B tier. I think it's not bad. It's middle of the road. You can also see that on the ladder. It's like 8th place. It's above Enhancement Shaman, like in play rates, in both EU and US. In the EU, you have more Elemental Shaman as well, like above Destruction Warlock. It's 7th place. It's better than Balance Druid right now. It's average to good. Like it has lobbies where you're going to be like very hard to kill, and you have lobbies where you are literally the victim of the lobby. It is what it is, but you have tools. You can push people around, like an Arms Warrior. You can like Unleash Shield. You can then Thunderstorm. You can then Static Field Totem fling them. You can also Gust of Wind away. You can also root them and then Gust of Wind. You have all of tools that you can do to run away. Where, for example, Enhancement Shaman has a lot less tools to actually get to the enemies. Elemental Shaman is reliable, consistent damage. It is not the most bursty spec in the game, because again they got nerfed on that. You could play a bursty spec, but then you need to cast a lot more lightning bolts, and that is not easy to do in Soul Shuffle, because you don't really choose your comps. But I would say it's really like middle of the road, not bad, but also not good. I would say like it's average to good, like here, in the middle of everything. Alright, I might make enemies out of that. Let's talk about Resto Shaman. I think Resto Shaman is currently 8 tier for me. I think it's a hard spec to play in Soul Shuffle. That's mostly it. It has more rep on US than EU, but in the EU we are like more fond about Disc Priest and the rest of the druids in general, so they do take the cake a bit more. But I think in general Resto Shaman are doing fine because they have great healing. You do need a lot of mastery, so you need to play around that, and the foresight kind of sucks from what I've seen. So there is a world where you are going to lose in the long run when everyone has foresight and they have meaningful foresets and you don't. That could be a very bad thing for you. But I do feel like it's above Resto Druid. So it might be B tier, maybe above, like, for example, this. So it's above Resto Druid, but Resto Druid is like bottom B tier, for example, right? Something like that. That could be making sense, I think. And for example, here we have Preservation Evoker and Disc Priest above Fury Warrior. Holy Paladin. Yeah, let's talk about Paladin. Holy Paladin is 8 tier. I think it's the 3rd best healer right now. Their buffs are good. They don't get like as much anymore. They actually like last very long. They're doing pretty well. Their CC is okay. They have Divine Shield and Bop, which is actually very good versus Hunters and Feral Druids. A bit less versus Unholy Decays, but you have a way to dispel diseases, which is very strong, with your Flash of Heal. So you could actually dispel people, their dots, so that could help versus Unholy Decays. But you're also very terrible versus Affliction Warlocks and Devastation Evokers, so you don't really have any defenses versus casters, even versus Unholy Decay, but at least you have like Flash of Heal, where you can do that. I think right now Holy Paladin is probably the most bottom A tier though. You have a clear distinction between Preservation Evoker, Disc Priest, and Holy Paladin. But I think right now the buffs did make them feel a lot stronger and a lot more impactful, in my opinion, in Soul Shuffle, especially with the current meta where mages are a bit less prevalent. So you could actually not lose your Bop after you have cast it. But I think in general you can win games more than before, so that's a good thing. It was like C tier I think before B tier, and now it's A tier, so it's actually not a bad like spot to be. Mistweaver, let's talk. I know Retribution Paladin. So Retribution Paladin is tough to rate. I do feel like they're getting better and better because of Feral Druids being able to like bop yourself to get the bleeds out, which is also always good. You're also good versus Hunters if you're actually able to catch up. You do get kited, don't get me wrong, but you have at least range on Paladin, like Retribution Paladin, compared to Enhancement Shaman. They are like not really in hybrid anymore, they don't heal too much, but they're very average though. Also in play rate, like it is one of the most popular specs in the game. So for me, it is going to be, where is my Holy Paladin now? Here, Retribution Paladin is going to be B tier, I think, like middle of the road B tier. I think that's a fair spot to be. And now the more I think about, I think Destruction Warlock is actually just a B tier spec. I think it's good spec, but not that good. Let's talk about, I didn't talk about Outlaw Rogue. Sorry, I forgot about that spec. It's going to be D tier. You have only 15 above 1800, and in the US you have 14. The ones I see, they lack damage. They just lack damage in a bracket where damage is king. Like Outlaw Rogue, damage is king. You can CC the hell out of everyone, but if they're playing a cleave versus you and you're going to CC everyone, it's going to be very difficult, because it's going to be broken, blind, gouge. but also you don't really have the killing power to actually be meaningful in those lobbies. I do feel like the more zug the lobby is, the way harder it becomes for Outlaw Rogue to actually be meaningful. If you have a caster versus a caster, for example, you become a bit more prevalent because stopping a caster from casting is actually very big. But Unholy case, if you're stopping them, well, they do still have rolling dots. Feral Druids, if you stop them, they still have rolling dots. Devastation Evoker, very hard to catch up. You're not going to catch up a Devastation Evoker anyways. Affliction Warlock is actually doing way more than you. So D tier, I think it's like again. I'm going to make me getting exposed about it, but I think Outlaw Rogue is just not good. I think it needs a PvP rework. It has the same disease as Arcane and Enhancement, where in PvE they're doing good, or like great actually, but in PvP they are like really bad. Like they need a buff. I think Dispatch does no damage. Between the Eyes does no damage. Serious Strike does no damage, Ambush does no damage, Pistol Shot does no damage, nothing does damage with this spec, so I'm going to put them at D tier. Again, utility is fine, CC is fine, defensive are fine, but you still need a minimum of damage, like minimum damage to actually be able to burst someone down if they're like not looking, and they don't have that. Even Enhancement has that if you're playing like Stormbringer with Doom Winds and Ascendants. If they're not looking and they're not like doing anything to save their ally, they're going to get blasted. Every spec has that. Even Bowser with their Snarling alignment, or Frosty Gate with Pillar of Frost, if they're not looking, they're dying. Arcane with their Touch of Magi, if they're not looking, they're dying. But Outlaw Rogue, for some reason, they can like not look for 10 seconds, 15 seconds and not die. So yeah, this is pretty much the Outlaw Rogue tier. Havoc Demon Hunter, I do feel like it's like this, I think. Havoc Demon Hunter. Havoc Demon Hunter is actually, they got buffed. I'm actually not impressed. It does also show like a lot of Demon Hunters actually just go to Brown class, which is Fury Warrior. Doesn't mean that it's bad. I don't know. EU, they have a bit more, but I don't know. I think it's not that bad. I think it's not that bad. I'm going to put them at B tier, but average tier, like really lowest. Why? Because it still has okay damage. It is doing damage. If you're not like you cannot let having the monsters do whatever they want. Of course, they have CC, they can survive, but it depends on who they're facing. I just think the meta is just not suited for them, and I think a lot of having the monsters actually just migrated to Fury Warriors. So it's very hard to actually have a very big sentiment about it. I think if Fury gets nerfed heavily, you will see more Havoc Demon Hunters, because I think a lot of people are going to then try Havoc Demon Hunter. But right now I do feel like B tier is a fair spot for them. Now Mistweaver, I think it's C tier, lowest as Holy Priest. I could put D tier, but it's too harsh. I think it's not unplayable. I think it's just like underpowered. They get buffed in mid-season, so there's something there. I'm trying my luck with Fist Weaving, so I'm playing Fist Weaver and actually enjoying my time. I think it's like obviously not that easy for you because the meta is not suited, but you could actually like win games versus like the top. In Holy case, they are actually good for like you can be good versus them because like Silence does nothing versus you as Fist Weaving. You can actually like cleave them and do a lot of damage as well and do a lot of healing. But you still are like a fist weaving monk, so you could actually just die by getting a switch on you, and your allies needs to be smart. Like if they're kiting you and you are like getting kited by the enemy because of that, then you're not healing, so you have to play accordingly. Sometimes playing ranged is better than fist weaving, but it depends on who you're facing. Like if you're ranged versus like a mage and a warlock, it's difficult because if you're getting kicked, it's like 5 seconds where you're not healing. So, and versus like melees, you want to cleave, you want to play fist weaving. So it's a very tough decision where sometimes I just prefer to play fist weaving. So I'm going to put them at C tier right now. Windwalker is for me above Fury. I think it's like this. Yeah. I think it's above Fury. I think it's good, strong, does a lot of damage. Obviously, it's hard to play. It's harder to play than Fury. But I think right now with the current meta, Windwalker is actually doing okay, very good actually. It has a CC, it has damage, it has a gateway if you want to. You can just TP away and come back whenever you're ready. In general, I think it is a great spec, and it is also very, very fun to play as well. So that is just like one thing aside. And in general, I think you have better lobbies and bad lobbies. It's kind of the same strength as Fury Warrior because it depends on the lobby. You have lobbies where Windwalker is going to be better than Fury, and you have lobbies where it is the reverse. So that is something you have to consider whenever you're talking about Windwalker or Fury in general. But yeah, this is my tier list. So I got a bit tired at the end because I'm a bit sick. I wanted to make the tier list for you guys. It is a 1 hour tier list again, but hopefully you do love those kinds of tier lists where I do talk a lot about those specs. You could actually see it as a podcast, really. I try to explain every single spec, try to defend every single time the position I put on the tier list. So sometimes it is like easier to counter me in the comments, which is normal, and I love discussions with you guys. Please try to explain why you would put something else somewhere else, so you could actually like have a discussion, like saying like ha ha ha, how dare you put Feral Druid as S plus, and then say nothing about it. Then like discussion cannot go further, right? So try to talk about like the spirit, the feral, the specs, and try to explain why you would put it somewhere else, so we could have an actually like a discussion. And again, this is not based on rank ones. There is like no need to do that because 99.99% of the players are not rank ones. So your sub rogue is not going to be becoming Peekaboo or Naj or Calvish, right? Your Arcane mage is not going to be Raikou for some reason. So try to think about those specs, like the specs that you're going to face in your own games, because that is going to be happening most likely. Anyways, thank you for watching. Have a great day, and be sure to stay safe. We will catch you all probably very soon in the next video. Have a great day. Bye.